Hey everybody, welcome back to Bonsai Tortoise. Today we're feeding tortoises. Okay, so we're in the greenhouse. I apologize if you hear any background noise. It's raining out, so you might get some noise from the rain hitting the top of the greenhouse. But pretty straightforward. We have our mush. This is a mixture of Timothy hay, orchard grass, Missouri, hibiscus flowers, dried weeds and leaves and flowers, and a little bit of Reptical. We also have some produce, so we have some escarole right here, we have some radicchio, and we have some strawberries for the Redfoots. Pretty straightforward. So I take this, these are my feeding trays. Sometimes I feed on rocks, sometimes I feed on trays. Outside, when they're outside, normally I do feed them on rocks or those concrete pavers. But when they're inside, generally, it's just a lot cleaner when you feed them on trays. Strawberries for Redfoots. I normally don't feed them fruit. The Redfoots might get a little bit once a week. And as you can see, for 4 adult Redfoots and 3 half-grown juveniles, they're only getting 3 strawberries. They don't, Redfoots can eat fruit. They don't really need it all that much. But they do get it once in a while. Just to give them a more variety in their diet. And you can see I'm cutting this up. They're full-size tortoises. They don't need a cut up. The reason I cut it up is because a lot of times they'll just go straight for the strawberries. So if it's mixed together, sometimes they'll see something different and they'll eat that, like this escarole or whatever. All right, so this mush, just throw it on there. The Redfoots, again, they're so easy. I'm just doing this for the purposes of the video. You don't need to mix this together for the Redfoots. They'll eat everything on this plate within a few hours, probably pretty much right away. But you don't really need to mix it together for them. At least my Redfoots. Some Redfoots, different tortoises are different. So sometimes you do it mixed together, but mine are pretty much, they're so easy. Anyway, so we'll put this in their enclosure. All right, so I put one of these trays over there, and one over here. They'll notice it, they'll come running for it. So they're chowing down, they're doing good. A couple of them are still on their hide, they're still walking around, coming out. Once they see that, especially once that red strawberry catches their eye, they'll go right over that food and start eating. There's Bumpy going to get his stuff. So like I said, these Redfoots are not picky for the most part when it comes to this kind of stuff. They'll eat everything. So that one right there is eating the mush. Another one's eating this one here. Is eating the strawberry. This one here was pushed away from the tray, but she'll get her nose in there. Over here you got Bumpy, our big male, who decided to pull his food out of the tray and eat on the concrete block, and that's okay. You got one of the juveniles trying to get to that radicchio. Yeah. As you can see, our Redfoots, they eat good. I don't feed them every day. They did not eat yesterday, especially in the winter time when it's cooler. But they get fed about 3 or 4 times a week, give or take. If it's a cloudy day and nothing heats up in the greenhouse, I'll skip that day, obviously. But generally speaking, 3 to 4 times a week. Okay, so now to the Hermanns. My Hermanns have decided that they want to focus more on the produce and not eat this stuff. And that's not the worst thing in the world, but you don't want to strictly feed them produce. You want to really mix it up and mix up their diet. So what I do when I go to the grocery store is every week I'll buy something different. So this week I bought escarole and radicchio. Next week they might eat romaine and dandelion greens. The week after that it might be you know, some red leaf lettuce and some spring mix or something else. So in terms of produce, they're getting different produce pretty much every week. But the Hermanns decided over the past, I don't know, few weeks to a month, the two adults that had been in there for a while, they wanted to switch over to produce and not eat this good stuff. The new one that I added in there about a week or two ago that came out of quarantine, you can go check out that other video of me introducing her. She has always preferred the produce. So what I have had to do with her is cut this relatively small, mix this together with it, so at least she's getting some of this that sticks to this as she's eating. So it's a process. But I'm going to do the same thing with the Hermanns. I could literally just put these two things in here and they would just eat them. I don't need to cut them up. But I'm going to cut this stuff really small. I'm going to mix it together with this, and then I'm going to put it on the trays. That way they'll still eat the produce, but they'll get some of this in there. Okay, so you can see this is pretty well mixed. You can see that the mush pretty much touches every single piece of produce in there. So when they go to eat this produce, they're going to get some of the mush and those good weeds and those good that good stuff, the good hibiscus flowers and the Missouri in there with them. And what I'll do over time, I'll probably increase the amount of the mush and decrease the amount of the produce, so we can get them back to eating where they should be. So this is probably a lot of food for my 3 Hermanns tortoises. I have 2 full-size adults and 1 half-grown juvenile in this enclosure. I'm overfeeding them purposefully. That way, if they sniff here and they sniff too much of the mush, they go here, but they're still hungry. It might get them wherever they turn. There's food. So it's kind of like when you have a kid and they see a shiny thing and they have to go at it. They might get disinterested here, but then all of a sudden look over here and like, oh, I want that, and just eat that and go for it. So they're probably not going to eat all this. I'll have to remove it so it doesn't go rotten. They don't eat rotten food, but I'm trying to get them to eat this good stuff as best I possibly can. Feeding tortoises is honestly, it's really straightforward. You know, a lot of people ask, what do you feed them? What do you do? And some people just overdo it, and by overdoing it, they kind of, it's a disservice to the tortoise in a way, because you're feeding things that they really shouldn't eat, or they go to the supermarket and buy tons of the wrong kinds of produce. Keep it simple, you know. In terms of produce, just get the romaine, the red leaf lettuce, dandelion greens if you can find them, radicchio, spring mix without spinach, and then get the good stuff. You know, there's plenty of places out there that sell either dried herbs or dried weeds specifically for tortoises. So, you know, there's plenty of breeders out there that have websites that are good, solid people that you can buy a mix off of them. The Missouri, you can get that relatively easy. You can get it off of Amazon, you can go directly to Missouri and get a 25-pound bag if you want. In terms of Timothy hay, if you can go to PetSmart and you can buy a bag of Timothy hay, cut it up real small and soak it. So I buy dried Timothy hay pellets that's meant for horses, and dried orchard grass meant for horses. There's no additives, there's no vitamins, there's no nothing. And I just soak that all together. For hibiscus, in the summertime, they usually have hibiscus bushes growing outside, so that's not a problem. But you can buy dried hibiscus flowers, just plain old organic dried hibiscus flowers online at Amazon, and it's used for hibiscus tea. I get that, I crunch it up, and I soak it with their food. So I mean, it's not hard. Some people overthink it. But it is easy to feed your tortoises the right stuff. Don't be tempted, though, especially with Hermann's tortoises, to give them things like fruit, to give them, you know, things that they shouldn't eat. Tortoises don't need treats. You know, you can give them a treat by giving them their own food that they should be eating. They don't need a strawberry treat. They're not like a dog. They're not going to do tricks for you. You know, Some tortoises, like my Redfoots, I'm giving them strawberries, but that's a little bit, only a little once in a while. Once in a while with the Redfoots too, I'll give them a little protein, maybe a little bit of hard boiled egg, or maybe even some turtle pellets that I get from Missouri. Especially with Hermann's tortoises and other tortoises like Sulcatas and Leopards and stuff like that. You don't need to overthink this. It's not hard. And then sometimes when you overthink it, you go and you give them things that you don't need to give them, just because you think that they want it and they're begging for it. They're begging for food. That's all. They're not begging for a strawberry. They're not begging for a banana. They're begging for food. So she's going for the produce, and that's fine because it's got some of that stuff mixed all with it, and she'll get some of that stuff into her gut too, along with the produce. And we'll just start giving them a little bit less produce here and there, and start increasing that mush so they get some more variety in their diet and not just the produce. Okay, so here we are for our juveniles and hatchlings. We have different sized bowls for different sized tortoises, and we just divide it up. The adults and the juveniles and the hatchlings get the same exact meal every day. The only difference is the size of the bowl and the size in which I cut it up. I'll cut up the smaller hatchlings a lot smaller. Probably don't have to do that, but I do it anyway. That's really the only difference, and obviously the amount of food that they got. This is escarole, radicchio. Then we have our pre-made mush mix. And for the Redfoots, I don't feed them fruit every day, but today they're getting a strawberry. And there's 3 bowls here for Redfoots. This is the larger juveniles, this is the yearlings, and this will be for the hatchlings. So this one strawberry gets split up between all of them. The only reason I mix it is to make sure that all this really good stuff touches every other leaf that's in there with the produce. That way, if they don't want to eat this stuff, they're kind of forced to eat it because they get at least something in with their food. And we're done. I start all my young tortoises out on a wide variety of foods like this from day one. You can see in some of these clips the same tortoise eating different foods from the same plate. They're not picky as long as you start them right. Starting them like this really builds a healthier tortoise and a more well-adjusted, more robust tortoise years down the road. I rarely find the need for additional powdered supplements like calcium powder or multivitamin because, to be honest, they're getting the bulk of the fiber and the vitamins and the minerals they need from this diet. These young ones will be on this diet for the rest of their lives. Come spring, I can cut back on this produce and mush mix because the natural weeds will be more plentiful. They'll still get a bit of this, but not as much as they do now in the winter. You can see this, these Redfoots here, the top one especially, going back and forth between the mush and the escarole. And they'll just keep going back and forth through that whole plate until their bellies are full. So I hope you found this video helpful. Maybe it gave you some ideas on what you can do and how you can feed your tortoises. It's not hard, and as long as you feed them a good variety of the right kind of stuff, then you're good to go. Thank you again, and please like and subscribe. See ya. Bye.